Because when you read the ancient texts in hieroglyphic, ancient Egyptian texts, you see that they are speaking about the god Nu, who is the god of, the first water, the first earth, etc. The god Nu is like Noah, we know that in all civilization you have the kind of the same god with the same name everywhere. Sure. We know that the pyramids and the Sphinx are much older than they said from many years ago. But what can I say to you about the Sphinx is that existed another Sphinx just the other side of the Nile, and the feminine one and the masculine one. This is attested in more than thousands of texts, ancient Arabic texts, and this is also one of my research.
Hi, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and we are here at Megalithomania, and I am here with Antoine Gigal.
Gigal. Yes.
Gigal, okay, and she is an Egyptologist and really extraordinary, doing extraordinary investigations for many, many years on the Giza Plateau and all over Egypt. She lives in Egypt, and she looks at it from a completely different point of view than a lot of the investigators out there today, and I'm very happy to be able to talk to her.
Happy to be with you today also.
Thank you. So what I'd like to talk about is some of the things that you were covering in your talk earlier, and maybe some of the things that you're going to talk about today. And then let's just sort of see where it goes. First of all, because of this audience will not know your work necessarily, can you tell us how you got involved in Egyptology?
Yeah, it's a long story. Well, I'm living now from 20 years in Egypt, but before I was at the university in France. I made my study in Champollion School, a National Institute of Language, where I learned hieroglyphy, Chinese, Sanskrit, other languages, because it was my passion from very long time ago. And well, after that I went to Egypt and I discovered my true passion.
Okay.
I had the chance to be able to visit every site of Egypt, but not only the public sites, but the non-open to the public sites. And I have the chance also to be able to come back to every site each year from 12 years and to take pictures to see how the things were restored or not, etc.
Okay, and it's true also that you speak Arabic.
Yeah, I speak perfect, fluent Arabic.
Okay, and this is a huge advantage, as well as are you able to read the inscriptions on the temples?
Yes, I can read hieroglyphic, it's to say ancient Egyptian. I can read ancient Greek, and I can read Arabic.
Okay, so this gives you an advantage over many researchers, I would say.
Yes, my research is based not only on physical evidence on the terrain, but also because I'm able to translate directly from the ancient text what I'm reading. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there anything specific that you can tell us? Because I know that you are also up to date on your Facebook page. You were telling us that you're actually giving news items from inside Egypt and all the time for
Yes.
maybe quite some time,
Yes.
maybe a year or more?
Oh, 3 years now.
3 years. Okay. And for those listening, I think that's a great thing to reference and to catch up on.
Yes, you can go to my Facebook page, Antoine Gigal, and you will find news of every day in Egypt, in Cairo. And I was very amazed of what I could read about the Occidental news, medias, because what I was living in Egypt was totally different. So a lot of people joined my Facebook page in order to see what was the truth.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, before we go into ancient Egypt, why don't we talk about the current events?
Yeah.
Because you have an interesting take on what's going on.
I was very amazed by what I could see in Occidental media's news about Egypt, because I was living in Egypt and living completely different things. And yes, the events, for example, when they started, the day they started, something they never said in the Occidental medias is that, in fact, in reality, armed commandos attacked 12 high security jails in Egypt, and those commanders freed prisoners, but very dangerous ones, and giving them guns. And then the event started. So it's not what we think, a natural movement only. It was very well prepared. And also, it was prepared because we know today in Egypt that a book was published 1 year before telling every event coming, day by day.
Really?
Yes, an Egyptian writer wrote this book, yeah.
Well, how did this Egyptian writer know what was going on?
This is a question. I can't answer this. Many speculation about that.
Okay.
Because, for example, the commanders went to free the people inside the prisons were not exactly Egyptians. So you are maybe many foreigners involved in the story also.
Ah, really?
Yeah. There's suspect people coming from Lebanon, from other countries. So a lot of things mixed there. It's not a simple event.
Okay, yes, very interesting. As things have moved along since then, we have Zahi Hawass, who has resigned, and we've got I just heard you announce that there was a new Minister of Antiquities. Is that correct?
In fact, Mr. Hawass never resigned, because the day he published that he resigned, he was sacked, in fact, because the government changed that day, and the minister changed every ministry, and of course him also. So he was sacked as the other ministries. He never resigned.
Okay. Yes, okay, I understand. Well, we understand also that there had been a great deal of stealing going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of, Zahi Hawass has been accused of turning, allowing these things to happen, turning away, ignoring it, maybe even participating in this.
Well, this is now in the hands of the justice in Egypt. We will see what happened. A lot of files, a lot of things, we will see. But I was very concerned by all the looting during the last weeks, because it was not normal that, you are Ministry of Antiquity and you are not asking to the military to come to protect these sites. That seems very strange, And you had many sites attacked by 40 people with guns, etc., and the police was not there because nobody was there, in fact.
Okay, it sounds a lot like what went on in Iraq.
Yeah.
After the U.S. Invaded.
Yeah, but this time there was no invasion, so I can't say nothing.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, so in terms of how you feel about this time in Egypt, do you feel hopeful that there will be something positive come along as a result of the revolution that's happening?
Well, I think anyway, change is good anyway. I really think it's very good. The main thing is, Egypt is 75%, you have 75% of young people under 30 years old. And you have a demography, very fast demography, 3% in 3 years of increasing of demography. So you have plenty of young people, also under 20 years old, and they are coming with much illusions, and they think that outside the country you can win money easy, and you can find a job very easy. They don't know the situation we are facing, all of us in the world. So I'm afraid of disillusion, because any government will come to the power in September, they will not able to give money and job to everybody. So that is the risk. And also the risk is, of course, the religious sectarists. There are many in Egypt, and powerful, very powerful. So I hope the young and other people will be able to face the situation with wiseness, you know.
Okay, I understand. Now, to move on to your studies and your research, can you tell me what you feel is the direction that you're going? Like you feel that you're eventually, and you have been revealing, that hasn't been revealed before or isn't known by other people?
Yes, my research is very specific, because mainly my main theory is that Giza Plateau, not only the pyramids in Giza Plateau, but all the Giza Plateau, and for me the Giza Plateau is 80 kilometers long. It's not only the 3 pyramids with the Sphinx, of course with different geological features, but it's a plateau made of islands, in fact, ancient islands. It is exactly what I'm finding with also with my friends of the Geological Survey of Egypt. And all that to say that the first pharaohs, but before the first dynasty for me, built all the Giza Plateau in order to make a kind of shelter under the plateau for all the population and all the knowledge. And not only for Egypt, but maybe for all the planet in that time. But this is, of course, speculation for the moment. But my theory is grounded geologically now, and with evidence I found in the terrain, and also with the ancient texts. Because, for example, you have the Abu Ormes writings, where you find the evidence of the existence of a pharaoh named Saurid. And this pharaoh Saurid, much before the first dynasty, he prepared the Great Pyramid as an entrance for underground facilities to put all the knowledge and the population, because he knew 300 years before, that is written in the text, that a big catastrophe will come to Egypt, a big, huge flood. So he wanted to save all that knowledge in the population. And not only in this Abu Ormes hieroglyphic text, in fact it is in hieratic and Coptic writing. But you have plenty of other texts, Arabic texts from the historians. Al-Muqtadi, for example, is saying that a high priest with the name of Sayuf was living under the pyramid, and that he saw the arriving of the flood, and he made a prayer to his lord Osiris in order this flood don't kill the people. So you have plenty of evidence of that in the text.
Okay, and so that's very interesting. And you also have demonstrated very clearly how the boats and the water was all very much a part of Egypt, and still is today, that the canals are still being used, and the water wheels. In fact, that the Dutch come and study the water wheels. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. You have hundreds of kilometers of canals, of dams, waterlocks, water facilities everywhere on the plateau, and still working, which is incredible because the evidence we have are from 3,500 BC. But I know that this is only restoration, so it existed before. And it is still working today. The part of Fayoum depression, at 80 kilometers south of Giza, you have all those kilometers, hundreds of kilometers of canals still working. And this represents an amount of stones, much more than to build the 3 pyramids. So how they did all that work? This is completely amazing. You know, also the King Louis XIV in France, a long time ago, sent his envoyé to see this amazing waterwork network in Fayoum because he wanted to do the same in France. But when this man came back to France, he explained everything and they were not able to do the same. Because very complex, very well built, and a lot of systems. Also, you have the boat pits you find under every pyramid, and an amazing technology. We are facing, for true, a high-level maritime civilization.
Yes, and that's fascinating because at this time, of course, it's hard for people to accept simply because it's so dry there that, you know, it's changed. But most Egyptologists and people that follow the history know that the pyramids were built in a place where there was it was incredible lush.
Exactly.
Jungles
so
and all.
You have to imagine this desert full of forests with water running everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Now, when you say that they think that they could have been a sort of a repository for knowledge and also for safety for the people under the pyramids, and obviously there are most likely lots of different levels going on underneath the pyramids, tunnels of all kinds going all directions. Would you call this the either the labyrinth, or would you call it the Hall of Records? I mean, or something else altogether?
This is a very interesting question. Because when you read the ancient texts in hieroglyphic, ancient Egyptian texts, you see that they are speaking about the god Nu, who is the god of, you know, the first water, the first earth, etc. The god Nu is like Noah, you know. We know that in all civilization you have a kind of the same god with the same name everywhere. Sure. And this god Nu in Egypt, he was all the time speaking about Tiba. And Tiba is today the city of Luxor, the ancient name of Luxor.
Oh, Thebes, what we would say in English,
Thebes. Like the Greek, yes, Thebes. But in ancient Egyptian it's Tiba. And
I see.
Tiba was an art at the origin. You know, every word in ancient Egyptian means other things.
Yes.
Depends of your level of consciousness.
Yes.
So Tiba, in fact, is a rectangular or square arc.
Oh, really?
And the city of Thebes today was Tiba before. And you know why? Because the ark arrived at final stage in Luxor.
I see.
So they gave the name of this city, the name of the ark, Tiba. What I really think is that, you know, the pyramids are, when I say the pyramids, I mean the Great Pyramid, for example. They are built as a dam, a huge dam, because you don't have only 4 sides. To the Great Pyramid, you have 8 sides because it's convex. You can see that twice a year with your eye because it's very... and you have the corners very well grounded with the system. So this pyramid is able to support incredible strong earthquake and incredible amounts of water. So it is not only a dam, of course, it's many other things, because the ancient Egyptians used to build a thing for many different things. That's very interesting. They were so clever.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what about the notion of the ritual? There was a whole thing that the adepts inside the pyramid, the young, they're basically called adepts who were studying the knowledge, who had to go through certain initiations. Some of those initiations involved diving down into the water and going underneath, inside the pyramid.
Yeah. Well, as for the pyramid, for the moment, we don't have any evidence, physical evidence of that.
Yes.
But I know places in Egypt where you have evidence of that.
Yes.
In the Delta, you have many places like this. It's very impressive because, in fact, not only they had to go inside the water a long time, but they were facing crocodiles inside.
Yes, yes, that was a part of the ritual.
They needed to feel a big fear in order to throw away. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, do you know anything about Amarna?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have a totally different position on Amarna, you know. So.
Okay, that's fine. Let's hear it.
It's not my main topic. I know the people will not like what I will say, but anyway, for me it's my truth. So.
Yeah, that's.
So Amenhotep is the first. You know, for me, was not a saint that everybody is depicting, because we just discovered text in Luxor just this past year. I think it's November, December, where we found that Akhenaten, he put in prison and then decided to kill many persons.
Oh, really?
During his reign. So he was not the angel that everybody think.
I see.
You know. So that's what makes me feel that we have a very wrong vision for that. And also because I can say with the ancient hieroglyphic text, ancient Egyptian text, that Egypt, all the time before Akhenaten, they were worship only one god already. But the different gods, the problem is the translation we had, Occidentals. Gods is natural in ancient Egyptian, and it is not God's translation. Natural, the right translation is energies, which is totally different.
Okay.
You know. So when you understand that the so-called gods are not gods, but energies, different aspect of the energy of the oneness.
Okay.
So you had a cult in Egypt from the oneness, and not for different gods.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, during the Roman time and Grecian time, all that was lost. All this knowledge was lost, and they mixed everything. And
that's right.
But in the ancient time, in the ancient Egyptian time, it was a cult for God, one God only. So Akhenaten was not putting again something. He decided to cut with the tradition of the high priests. And this is, of course, as today, they were facing in that time, because Akhenaten for me is very recent, you know. I prefer to speak 4,000 before Christ and his time. But anyway, in the time of Akhenaten, they were facing a very difficult time as today in Egypt. And I mean, you know, high priests were not like before. They were stealing things, etc., etc. So.
Okay, yes, that's very interesting. Well, I went to Amarna recently, and when I look at it, it appears that they actually exploded a bomb, because they've cleaned the desert floor down to nothing.
I know.
I mean, it's like dust.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I mean, it's not like they just took a few stones away or a few monuments or whatever. They had to clean it by throwing a bomb into it.
Yes, I know, it's very strange.
It is quite strange. So there is a cover-up, it seems to me, around Amarna.
You know, when religious topics are involved, you always have something hidden, you know. Amarna is too big religious topic because you have a Bible groups involved in this research, you have religious, you know. So you don't have any neutrality of research, any scientific true research without religious topic inside.
Okay. Now, what I would like to do, because I wonder if you go, because you said you'd like to go before Akhenaten, and because I don't know your work well enough, but I would say, do you know about Atlantis and the idea that the Egyptians originally came from Atlantis?
Well, once again, I'm not the same. You know, I have a quite different point of view of that.
Okay.
I think it's for that the Egyptian of today likes me, because for me, Atlantis. You know, you have all over the world under the seas big cities.
Yes.
Big cities everywhere, and I listen every day, oh, this is Atlantis, this is Atlantis. No, they had different names. But for me, Atlantis, this is my theory, one of my next book. Atlantis is coming from the name of Atel, and Atel is an ancient name, Egyptian name for canal. As you know, in my research, all Egypt was covered by canals. You had 42 nomes, areas, completely managed by canals, incredible canals, and islands. So for me, Atlantis is Egypt, where you can find the most astonishing building, like the Great Pyramid. It's in Egypt. But what is important is that Atlantis, for me, is Egyptian, but who were the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptian? For me, you had 24 tribes in Egypt, very different. I wrote a long article with all the details in my website, gigalresearch.com, English flag, then publications, you will find it, the first Egyptians, where I wrote all the evidence found by archaeologists in the terrain that you had those 23 different tribes before, in prehistoric times in Egypt. You had blacks, you had red skin, you had white skin, you had yellow skin, etc. So for me, Egypt is all humanity was there at the beginning.
Okay.
Know?
Now, how do you think about Sumer? And because there's information coming out that I'm getting and also hearing, even in this conference, that's leading me to believe that it's possible, or it seems to me that actually Egypt predated not Atlantis, but predated Sumer.
A lot.
And a lot of people, you know, talk about the Sumerian tablets as being the first information, and so on and so forth. It doesn't seem correct to me for some reason.
Yeah, well, once again, I have a different point of view, but I mean from the public, general public, because it was a fashion until now to speak about Sumer, thanks to the book of Zecharia Sitchin. I respect very much Zecharia Sitchin, his first book, because it was his first book. After that, he changed a lot of stuff. Translation was, for me, not correct after.
Okay.
But he's very respectful research anyway. Okay. But the most interesting is that Sumer, the most ancient period of Sumer, Ubaid period, is, you find in Egypt much more older evidence of civilization in Egypt, because from now 10 years, archaeologists are finding incredible stuff about ancient Egyptian much older than Ubaid period in Sumer.
Okay.
But I think what it is interesting with Sumer is that the ancient priests, they wrote in the text. It's very interesting to know something. There was a kind of war between Sumer and Egypt, because the priests always said that Sumer was the place of black magic and Egypt of white magic. And all what they were doing, it was to protect Egypt with spells, with texts, etc., with ceremonies, from the priests of Sumer. This is strange, no?
Really? Yes. Very interesting. Now, where does that information come from?
That information came from many ancient texts in hieroglyphic.
In hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you cite the texts at all, so that if we have people listening who want to go find the information?
Yeah, not today.
Okay.
But I will write articles about that, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this does change the whole sort of equation. Okay. So, as far as what you have found recently, and your investigations, what exactly are you following at this exact time?
For the moment, we are analyzing things we find at 75 meters up the plateau of Giza, to show and to have true evidence that in a time the sea was up the plateau.
Okay, yes.
This is to show that the flood came, so that the pyramids are pre-flood time.
Pre-flood, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, how high did the flood waters get on the pyramids? Do you know?
We still don't know exactly. We know already that it came 75 meters up the plateau. It's the base of the pyramid of Khafra. Khafra is
The middle.
and Mykonos also. But we have ancient records, English records, and that shows that they found marine fish at 23 meters up the Great Pyramid, and salt and a lot marine salt outside, not only inside but outside the pyramid. So, but it's very strange every time people find such fantastic evidence, disappear the evidence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, what do you mean? Where does the evidence go?
In the past, many teams discovered, fish, ancient embedded in the stone in the pyramid, but complete fish, not from the stone itself. And they were doing analysis, and then the proof of this disappeared.
The proof
The
disappeared.
proof, yeah.
So it goes to a lab and then disappears
Yeah.
from there. Interesting. Okay. Now, there must be a tremendous amount of bribery going on the Egyptian plateau, and I don't know, a lot of countries also. From what I understand from other people I've talked to, there's also, for example, the Mossad. Israel has got an involvement in Egypt for some reason, that they are concerned with certain information that they feel is going to affect the perception of Israel or the Jewish people, etc. And that there are other countries. Obviously, the United States has been very much involved there, and therefore their militaries as well. Have you kind of bumped up against any of those groups?
In the first time of archaeology in Egypt, in the 1880 something, English found a kind of observatory in Cairo. This building, inside the building, it was obliged that when you discover any artifact in Egypt, your artifact and your report goes to this foundation, I can say foundation, English foundation, and then they said to you, okay, we can spread the news or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think every time in the past and now you have a lot of politics involved in ancient archaeology, because if you discover something predating the religious beliefs of a lot of people, then this is politics. So, well, every country is involved, you know.
Okay, but what about yourself? Have you had any, you know, have they directly affected any of your work?
No, because, you know, well, for the moment, but I try to find the way to be in peace with everybody, but also without any politics. I hate politics. I really hate politics. This is very bad for the knowledge and for the science and for everything. So I try to find everywhere the clever person, you know, able to understand that it is better to do a true good research with evidences and to spread the information as we can, the more possible.
Okay. Now, what's your theory about the Sphinx? Do you feel that the Sphinx, for example, is older than the pyramids?
Well, it's possible, yes, it's possible. We really don't know. We know that the pyramids and the Sphinx are much older than they said from many years ago. But what can I say to you about the Sphinx is that existed another Sphinx just the other side of the Nile, and the feminine one and the masculine one. This is attested in more than thousands of texts, ancient Arabic texts. And this is also one of my research. And when I began this research many years ago, I did not know that a geologist in Egypt was doing the same research than me. And another researcher in the world contacted me saying to me, you know, your research is exactly the same that this geologist you have to meet. So I met this fantastic geologist and we found the same thing together. So we decided to make this research together.
Okay.
And we found, in fact, the site of the ancient second Sphinx in front of the other one, the other side of the Nile River. It was very difficult to find because now you have Cairo city, which is a megapole, you know, city. But we found the place, the geological place, because it remains nothing of this ancient Sphinx, because it was made of bricks. At the you had one in bricks, one in stone. One masculine, one feminine. And it was destroyed during the big earthquake in Middle Age in Cairo.
Okay, so when was that?
The discovery?
No, the earthquake.
Oh, the earthquake is about 833 AD.
AD.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you had another one after also.
Another earthquake after.
Yeah. Many things disappeared because of the earthquakes, yeah.
Okay, was the earthquake a huge, it must have been a massive earthquake.
You know, the Great Pyramid facing blocks disappeared completely.
Oh.
And why? Because they used these facing blocks to rebuild mosques after the earthquake.
The mosques, really?
Mosques, yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. But as far as this second Sphinx, is there, I guess you say there's information, there's documentation that indicates that it did exist. Were there any drawings of it, for example?
How many?
Drawings, you know, were there any pictures?
Drawing. For the moment, we did not find any drawing, but very accurate descriptions.
Okay.
From many different, very serious authors, very well-known Arabic historians, not only from Egypt, but from outside, coming to visit Egypt. And this is very interesting also because this second Sphinx was in a place in ancient times in Cairo. This area name was Babylon.
Really?
And Babylon is the door of the gods. And it was named like this much before the Babylon you have in Iraq. A lot of connections there.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, where in Cairo now is this area that you're talking about? Where?
Where? It's in ancient Cairo, very ancient, oldest part of Cairo.
So what is it called? You know, Zamalek?
No, Zamalek is the modern part.
I see. Okay, so what's the name of this?
It's near Mokattam mountain,
okay.
at the feet of Mokattam mountain.
All right. Is there anyone else investigating this at this time?
No, it's just Dr. Barakat and me.
Okay. And are you continuing to investigate this?
Of course, it's a long research.
Are you able to do digging at all, or is anyone?
Well, we went to do digs. We asked the authorities of before to do digs, but the problem is that this place is in a prohibited area, military area. So very difficult to, even for a professor in Egypt, to get this permit. But we hope we will have it.
Okay, and to bring it into present day, the new Minister of Antiquities, do you have good hopes of possible changes to go along with this person?
We have to know that all the government names of today will change in September, so it's a very short time.
So it's only for 6 months or something?
Yeah, and also because they are facing so many emergencies, like what is they are facing in Libya. You have 1.5 million of Egyptians in Libya. They have to save, so it's a lot of work and all the stuff also.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, very interesting. What about Alexandria and the Library of Alexandria?
It's a pity they burn it, because in this library you had all what we need as information.
Yes. Okay. But do you subscribe to the belief that perhaps a lot of the manuscripts might have made their way to the Vatican?
We can suppose everything about that, you know, so much mystery hidden.
But you don't hear anything.
Everywhere.
Because you live in Egypt, you must hear all kinds of things.
You know, for me, the most important is the knowledge of the keepers of the tradition, which is the oral tradition. And this oral tradition can't die. But this tradition is not open to everybody, of course.
That's right.
Because they had to protect this. And I was very surprised many years before, because during 3 years I was going in every temple. And then they contacted me, the guardians, that they are in every temple anyway. Not the people with a ticket, but of course others. And they were watching me and they said, we know that you went always in the sense of the sun inside the temples. We saw that. They remembered everything I did. They said, we want to give you our knowledge. I said, but why? And they said, because we are no more. This was 7 years before today. Because we are no more allowed to give our knowledge to men.
Wonderful.
We need women.
Yes. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Well, this is wonderful. Antoine, we have limited time here today, but I would love to interview you again, and we will also put a written translation so that people, you know, who don't speak French, and your accent is quite thick, for those, I understand you, but I go to Paris and I understand. But I realize that people are having some trouble, but at the same time, you have such a fount of knowledge. Is there any secrets that you have been told that you would want to say here today at this time, or is this something that you are working towards?
both things. I just would like to say that the most important thing in the life today is the joy. To don't lose the joy, because the joy is very important in order to go further in these very troubled times. If you have the joy, you will be safe.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to say. Absolutely. Okay, I agree with that. Well, Antoine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's talk again. Bye-bye.